of recent crashes has caused some to question whether the thrill is worth the risk.
The event in aviation, Oshkosh to aviation is like Indianapolis is to auto racing, or Louisville to horse racing. The real fun is the fact of the interaction between people. You can be out there and there's Chuck Yeager over there, or there's an astronaut over here.
Air shows are one of the largest spectator events in the United States, second only to baseball. Nearly 23 million people each year come to shows like this one. The 41-year-old Experimental Aircraft Association Fly-In, held in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. People come from all over the world to watch aviators show off their home-built crafts, while stunt pilots draw gasps from the crowds with their death-defying feats. And military aircraft show off their might. But every year, as millions flock to this and other air shows all over the world, accidents during these daring performances draw attention to the risks taken for the sake of entertainment. So far this year, 5 people have died while performing at air shows in this country. Among the casualties, a father and daughter team who crashed and burned while performing at another air show in Concord, New Hampshire.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had an accident on the airport.
And at the 43rd Annual Air Show in El Toro, California, 40-year-old James Gregory died instantly when he crashed his F-86 Sabre jet before a crowd of 500,000 spectators.
We're very quiet here now. We'll have a set up here for you that we'll have our crews out here. Not worry about it. Just get some water and look around a little bit.
If the airplane even coughs, fuel fitting comes loose, a control surface jams, there's no way to recover.
Retired Navy Admiral Eugene Carroll is highly critical of air show safety. This director of the Center for Defense Information says these air shows put both pilots and spectators in danger.
I think we've been very fortunate in the past that some of these horrible crashes at air shows haven't been right into a bleachers or a grandstand and taken out dozens or hundreds of people.
The recent crashes at New Hampshire and California air shows have brought the issue of air show safety to the forefront once again. But officials here at the Oshkosh Air Show, also known as the Indy 500 of aeronautics, insist that air safety is their #1 concern.
This year has been an extremely safe event. We had one incident where an individual had an engine failure on takeoff and landed off the end of the runway, and he's fine. Other than that, we have had nothing. When you consider there's going to be over 50,000 flight operations, movements alone, to have only one incident of that nature, I think, is a superb safety record.
But this year, at least, other air shows have not been as lucky. In Lebanon, New Hampshire, 45-year-old pilot Mary McGrath and 30-year-old parachutist Scott Pond were killed when they collided during the opening ceremonies of the air show. Admiral Carroll, himself a veteran pilot with over 6,000 hours in the air and 500 carrier landings, points out that military air shows in particular carry the liability of life and cost. More than 100 airmen have died over the years in air show crashes that cost over $1 billion taxpayer dollars.
The tricks that the military pilots perform in these brilliant air shows are just exactly that. They're trick stunts with no purpose whatever. They don't make pilots more combat ready, more ready to defend the country.
This 1988 crash at Ramstein U.S. Air Force Base in Germany, the spectators were also the victims. 70 people were killed as an Italian precision flying team misjudged a maneuver. The mid-air head-on collision sent one plane crashing into hundreds of spectators. Many who died were U.S. servicemen and their families. They were burned to death when debris from the jet tumbled toward them as they watched the show, some still sitting in their lawn chairs. Several hundred other spectators suffered severe injuries. Officials insist that stringent safety procedures enforced here in the United States prevent such tragic accidents as the one that occurred in Germany. They say that the air show maneuvers, which seem so hazardous, are actually the result of years of training and diligent practice. Federal Aviation Administration's Dick Hanusa says the Ramstein tragedy could never happen here.
I believe at that accident, one aircraft was coming toward the crowd when it occurred, and that's why so many people got injured. And we have very strict rules and guidelines against for air show performers performing acts coming directly at the crowd.
What about the stunts and the acrobatics that these pilots do? Aren't they pushing the envelope, putting themselves in unnecessary danger?
There is a higher level of risk involved than your normal, everyday, straight and level flying, yes. But to the degree that these people train and practice in their own professional, I'd say no.
Chuck Spencer is one of the many commercial pilots who participates in the Oshkosh Fly-In every year.
It takes a young person who's in a really good physical condition also to take the G maneuvers, both positives, like when an elevator starts, you kind of feel that, right. And also when you get to the 8th floor, you're going to go like this. Well, you can appreciate what these guys are doing in these airplanes that are going up and over and down and snap rolls. It's tough on the body.
There's a saying in aviation, there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots.
People are operating to the highest standard possible, and we're dealing with human beings, and there may or may not be incidents, but we're doing everything we can to prevent them.
Despite the disasters, spectators and aviators continue to visit air shows, whether it is to dream, to watch the heart-stopping stunts, or to be with others who appreciate the sport and history of aviation. In these shows, at least, there is no fear of flying.